Good morning, everyone. It's late July and finishing up the last bit of property maintenance before the deer season. This is that little micro piece of property that I've killed a lot of really nice bucks off of over the years, and it's a pretty historical place for me. I've always regarded it as my honey hole, and as I mentioned, it's a super small piece, 4 acres, but it's between 2 sections of pretty large parks and golf courses along this river, and serves as this great pinch point between the 2 properties and always funnels deer in and out through it throughout the season. I've always used it as more of a rut spot, but either way, I'm in here to take care of the yearly maintenance, and I'm not going to bore you guys with that. The weed whacking, the tree trimming, all the other stuff the landowner might want me to do, but I'm actually going to throw it back today. As I mentioned, I've killed a lot of really nice bucks off of this property, and I've hunted here for close to 10 years. Shot my first deer off of this property, and shot my biggest buck off this property as well. So along with all the good things, there were plenty of life lessons that I've learned hunting on this property, and some stuff that I've learned the hard way and would rather not repeat. And as bow hunters, mistakes happen in the woods. When that high adrenaline moment comes up on a huge deer, sometimes bad decisions are made, and I'm never going to claim to never have made a mistake in the woods. And this hunt that I'm going to bring you guys today is just an example of one of those mistakes where a less adrenaline-filled Chris would probably not take the shot, but one of the biggest deers I've ever had a chance of back in 2020 gave me an opportunity. I somewhat forced the shot and made a poor hit on the deer, and it turned into one of those very long tracks and even a longer day. So I'm going to throw you guys back to that. I'm going to get to the maintenance here, and I hope you all enjoy.
November 6th, and got back out here to this micro 4-acre property that I hunt here in Northern Virginia. And this is my second solo season out here, and it's more of the same out here. We had a lot of good pictures through the summer, as I've talked about before, and they just disappear during hunting season, and basically come with a brand new hit list every October or November. And it's nothing different this year. We have a lot of good buck movement the past week, and a couple that are definitely jumped to the top of the hit list. And it's a beautiful morning, about 40 degrees, got a nice south wind blowing. I sent back into the Potomac here next to the property, and just happy to be out here and sit tight. Hope that I see something good and bring you all along for the ride. other two on my last hunt here. I've had deer do that in the past, but it's not something I thought they'd do this often. But that was a pretty nice deer. One of these 8-pointers that we've gotten on camera, I don't think I would have shot him if he came in, but he kind of worked his way about 40-50 yards down in this bottom. Never really got a good look at him, but he didn't look like one of the shooters that we've had out here. He eventually got nervous and turned around and bound off back towards my east here, so like I said, not one of our shooters, but that was just a really cool encounter, and first encounter this season with a nice deer, so hopefully there's more to come. Good afternoon. It's November 6th here, and slipped back out to this micro property I hunt here in Loudoun County, about 4 acres, for the afternoon sit. I was out here this morning and had one encounter with a buck that I thought was one of these 8-pointers that we've had coming through here, but I took the footage home, checked it out on a bigger screen, and it was a big buck. It was a big deer. So you got a little squirrely coming up this edge here, turned around and bound off towards the thick bedding area to my east. That was at about 7:30 this morning. He didn't spook too hard, it just looked like he felt a little uncomfortable, so hopefully he comes back through here this afternoon, or who knows, one of the other deer showing up on our cameras this last week shows up. We've had a couple of shooters pop up on camera, and we'd just love to see or get a chance at one of them. So the only thing against me right now is the temperature. It's about 68, 70 degrees right now, which is crazy for November 6th, but gotta play with the hand you're dealt. So I'm sitting out here hoping that prime time produces again out here. Afternoon sits have definitely been a better option for me these past 3 or 4 years on this property. I've produced some really awesome deer and really awesome hunts, so just excited to be out here, and can't wait for the rest of the night. So I'll keep you all tuned in, and let's just hope we can get something big on the ground tonight. There's not many worse feelings than when you make a bad shot on a deer. And I just made a bad shot on that deer. He didn't stop when I bleated at him, and if he had stopped, it would have hit right where I wanted it to. But I hit low, and I hit back, and it's gonna be a long weekend. I mean, goodness gracious, it's 3:53. That deer popped up around 3:40 and just kind of milled his way through here. Gave me a shot maybe 27 yards. A shot I should be able to put exactly where I want it, and I mean, I just didn't aim in the right spot. I'm just so disappointed in myself. He took off down the river bottom. I lost sight of him maybe 50 yards back there. I was just so dumbfounded by that shot. The best thing I can do is give him time to expire.
Well, yeah, just finishing up the edit on this video. Unfortunately, after the shot, I was so focused on the blood trail and recovering the deer that footage became really sparse. So I'm just going to walk you through the events that proceeded after the shot for the next few days. As I mentioned in the video, I gave it the whole night and into the next morning before I even picked up the blood trail. After recovering the arrow later that evening, it had nothing to go off of. Some guts on it and little specks of blood at the shot location, but nothing to give any promise. So I gave it till the next morning and started up the blood trail. As you can see in the footage, I did have some sight to him where he ran off and then stopped at the edge of the river and stood there for several seconds, and from there and about 50 yards past I had pretty decent blood, but it eventually petered out and I lost all blood that morning, and it turned into a grid search in that immediate area. And about 50 yards further from where I had last blood, I found another speck of blood, and as I was investigating it down on one knee, knowing that the deer could still be alive, I was trying to be as quiet as possible. I was trying to call my dad over to the location where I found the speck of blood, and the deer jumped up from a bed about 30 yards away from me. Luckily, we were in a park and he ran even deeper into the park, so we were able to continue the track. And after investigating the bed that he was sitting in along the river, it was definitely the same deer. There were some specks of blood in the bed. However, what usually happens when you jump a deer from a bed is you lose all blood completely. We were able to grid search most of the park, which came out to about 30 acres in the direction that he ran, and we spent the next 2 or 3 days getting out there. Luckily, it's close to where I was working at the time, and I was able to get out there almost every evening trying to get an idea of where this deer went. And after a couple days of nothing, looking for buzzards or anything, determined that the deer was probably still alive. However, a local neighbor actually across the street from the property eventually sent in images of a dead deer that they found on their property. And after looking at the pictures, it was the deer that I shot. It seemed like from the pictures the deer had been dead maybe a day or two, so it definitely survived a few days after the shot. However, just as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, just pretty disappointed in myself in making a poor shot like that. And I don't have the third person images or video, but I kind of had to squeeze it. It wasn't the best decision I've ever made, and as I mentioned, probably should have never been taken. On such a small property, the idea of making a good shot on a deer is pretty paramount, and I fell short in that aspect. It did tear me up. No one ever wants to go through, and I hope no hunter ever has to go through that kind of scenario. And unfortunately, Virginia does not require the hunter to have to retrieve the deer. If it dies on another landowner's property, they are free to decide what to do with it, and that landowner in particular chose to keep the deer. So unfortunately, I don't even have the antlers to show for it, just the experience. However, that's the most important part. I learned a lot from this. I grew as a hunter and I grew as a man. So It is part of the archery hunting. It's never the greatest part, and I hope I never have to go through it again. Guys, I appreciate y'all watching this, and I'll see you from the woods next time.